So I think Christians in general would love the Book of Mormon if they weren't kind of poisoned by what their ministers tell them about it.
How did we not think this up earlier?
Well, it's always been a missionary tool. And when it's a missionary tool, it creates an obstacle for people to accept it.
MOBOM, which I assume stands for Museum of the Book of Mormon.org,
Yes.
right? Which, by the way, is the O supposed to be included in the acronym?
It is because it's chiastic this way.
I'm spending money like I just got paid. $100 bills, tell them keep the change.
The Bible, which
All
is,
my hippie friends are screaming at their radios right now. See, we told you, man.
And pop a bottle, about to make it rain. Let me give you something now to celebrate. Come on.
and the brethren said, no, it's hard to read in English. It should be hard to understand in Korean too.
And if you're wondering why I move the way I do, I just feel so good.
We want to reduce barriers to the Book of Mormon. I so wanted to keep it. Of course, he wouldn't let me have it.
I would have punched him in the face
and run off.
and ran off with it.
Isaiah.
Wait, the church purposely made the Korean book of Isaiah hard to read?
Apparently, that's what he told me. So.
The following is an episode of Ward Radio and does not represent the thoughts or the opinions of KHTS, its owners, or any of its affiliates, nor does it represent the official opinion of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. With that said, sit back, relax, and enjoy the program. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, back to Ward Radio. I am your host, Cardinellis. Today I'm joined in the studio live by Jonathan Neville, prolific author, and now the curator, the director, I don't know what to call you, of a non-denominational Book of Mormon museum.
That's right.
How can a Book of Mormon museum be non-denominational? Like, I know there's the Bible Museum in Washington, D.C., right?
Yep.
That's non-denominational. It's a beautiful thing. Jordan Peterson just raves about it in multiple videos of his. But a non-denominational Book of Mormon museum. The second I heard that, I said, Jonathan Neville has to come in my studio and explain himself. Has he gone progmo? Is he a raging feminist now? Is he going to? No, I'm just kidding. What's
just the opposite?
Yeah, what's going on, my man?
Okay,
how can a Book of Mormon museum be non-denominational? I hear all the evangelical anti-Mormons booting up their laptops, ready to blog about how stupid you are.
Yep,
but I'm sure there's a rhyme to your reason. So tell us what that rhyme is.
Well, I visited the Museum of the Bible in Washington, D.C. a few years ago, shortly after it opened. And I was so impressed with it. I said, we got to do something like this. And I was even scouting around in that neighborhood looking for a building. And I have a friend who works in the temple department, actually in the church. And I had drawn up architectural drawings and stuff, and he helped me cost it out. I was pretty far down the road with this. And we were going to open a kind of a pilot museum in Palmyra. And I had the building, I had the exhibits. We were going to borrow some exhibits from University of Buffalo to have on display. And then COVID hit, and we weren't able to open anything. And so we just kind of let that go. And instead, we kind of converted it into a website.
Okay.
But now we're looking at maybe revisiting that whole project. And I can't give you all the details now, but I'll give you kind of an introduction to it. So the website is Museum of the Book of Mormon.
Okay. It's, I got it right here on the screen for those that are watching on YouTube. For those that are listening on the radio, it is MOBOM, MOBOM, which I assume stands for Museum of the Book of Mormon.org, right? Which, by the way, is the O supposed to be included in the acronym?
It is because it's chiastic this way.
I see what you did.
There
it's
you
like
go.
Now, for those that don't know what a chiasm is, it's the ancient Israelite type of scripture where the focal point was in the middle and then it flared out equidistant on each side. It's similar to race car. It's what's that called? An onomatopoeia.
Yeah, kind of
where
like that,
it's the same forwards as it is backwards.
Yeah.
So MOBOM, I get it.
Easy to remember.
Okay, awesome. I dig. The marketing trumps the grammar, my friend. I
and the
believe
grammar's
it.
not bad, actually.
Okay,
so,
fine.
know,
okay, fine. All right. We'll have to ask my public educator friends. But anyway,
Museum of Book of Mormon. You can look at it that way.
Yeah. So here's the Museum of the Book of Mormon.
Just drop the out of it and it works.
Okay, perfect.
All right. So anyway, so we have this website, and right at the beginning we explain that the Book of Mormon can bring inspiration and spiritual truth to people of all faiths or no faith even, and that's because if you read the title page of the Book of Mormon, what does it say? The Book of Mormon was intended to convince people that Jesus is the Christ, right? It doesn't say anything about joining any church. Yeah, and even in Moroni 10, it says you'll know the truth of all things. It doesn't say you'll join any church. And so I started realizing when I went to the Museum of the Bible, which
all my hippie friends are screaming at their radios right now. See, we told you, man. We told you, bro. Organized religion.
Well, the Museum of the Bible in Washington, D.C. is completely non-denominational.
Yeah, that's cool.
There's a section in there for the Museum of the Book from Jerusalem, has displays based on Judaism. There's they have the history of Christianity. They have a display on Jonathan Edwards, and all kinds of things that are really awesome. And I thought, why not do the same thing with the Book of Mormon? Because the reality is there's a variety of different faiths or churches based on the Book of Mormon that came out of the Restoration. And so Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is the largest in terms of membership, but there's others too who believe and love the Book of Mormon, but they're not members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
By the way, I can't help but notice that on the website here, you have some lovely slogans. People of all faiths find inspiration and spiritual truth in the Book of Mormon. The Museum of the Book of Mormon is a new way to understand and share the Book of Mormon in the entire world with links, articles, graphics, and other learning aids. And the learning aids that you post are very interesting. Origins. What's the origin of the Book of Mormon? Learn more. Teachings. What does the Book of Mormon teach? Learn more. And those links appear to go to, decent articles on them. But then evidences for the Book of Mormon. I don't see no Mesoamerican stuff here, brother.
There's links in here. I've got links.
That's a big fatty old mound on the cover, brother.
Well, that's one evidence.
Hey, look, if you're not cheating, you're not trying. And if you own the website, you're gonna put whatever you want on that. On that front page, baby.
Fair enough. So but I put the evidence that is consistent with what the prophets have taught. Put it that way. And so I do have links in here.
Are the most, I love just your little digs, man.
Yeah,
it's
I've got links in here to Scripture Central and the Meso stuff as an alternative.
Oh, okay, that's good.
Yeah,
that's
I do, sure. And the idea is that we're trying to present facts and people can bring their own or assumptions and inferences and all that stuff to reach their various conclusions. But the idea is that we're not trying to tell people what to think. We're trying to encourage people to have informed decisions. And that's been my theme of my books and so on as well. But this museum is intended to just be what a museum is. We don't talk about Doctrine and Covenants, Pearl of Great Price. It's just on the Book of Mormon. If you scroll down a little bit more on there, you see kind of the architectural concept for it.
Wow.
And it's set with...
it's a giant building with a bunch of footnotes on the side?
Well, there's inscriptions
like tabs,
like
you're going to open up the building in a scripture chase? Or what?
Well, even if we get sophisticated enough on the webpage, we'll do that. But the design of this building was to have a passage from the Book of Mormon in multiple languages on one side, and on the other side just have some other passages and so on. But you can tell it's designed to look like the plates with the ring between them. Right.
Wow. Oh, I see what you did there.
And the statue of Christ right in the center.
Cool.
And we have all the interior designed out and so on. So that would be the physical presence.
All right.
But for now, it's just a website. And we encourage people to provide content or input. We get emails from people who have either donated to it or subscribed to it. And there's several tabs across the top. You can see I even have podcasts, and I think I list WardRadio on there.
Oh,
yeah, there you go,
really?
Right there. See?
Oh, there we are. Rock on.
So I put podcasts in here related to the Book of Mormon. I have books and articles related to the Book of Mormon, and then issues in church history, kind of a FAQ for questions that we get a lot of.
Okay.
In these tabs, and so. It's a pretty extensive website, actually. It's grown over a period of time. And a lot of these are my podcasts, but I have other people's on here as well. So the idea is to be a resource for people who are interested in the Book of Mormon, regardless of whether they're Latter-day Saints or not.
Well, I see you're a billboard for our boys over there at the Stick of Joseph, man. Look at that, dude. We've got like 5 or 6 of them there.
Yeah, a couple of them anyway, yeah.
Mormonism with the Merv, the narrow neck of land. Yep. This is great, man.
Yeah, there's a lot of information on here.
Okay.
So the idea is I get so many questions from people after they watch me on your show, for example, I meet people that see it, and other people contact me, and I can just refer people to this as a reference. It's so much easier than trying to answer questions individually. And a lot of people come here just because they're curious. I have a section in here on the website for Christians, for Hindus, for Muslims.
Okay.
Explaining the Book of Mormon, kind of in their context. And I have, there's a lot more material on here. It's not just me that's doing this. But
I got a question for you.
Yeah.
So who is the most likely person to approach the Book of Mormon with an open and inquiring mind that you found in all of your time doing this? Like, is there any kind of...
It's hard to generalize, but...
is there any kind of commonalities? Like, is it mostly, I don't know, college students having to write reports that want to know a little bit more?
They do,
and they stumble upon you?
There are those. As an example, when I was in Dubai at the hotel, they had a little card in the drawer, and it was in English and Arabic, and it said, if you want a Quran, a Bible, or a Book of Mormon, ask at the front desk. And it was the Loft Hotel, which is owned by Marriott, of course.
Okay.
But it was cool to see that in Arabic even. This little card had all three of those scriptures. And so, I was just recently in New Caledonia, which is down in the South Pacific. It's a French province. And right in our hotel there, it was the Meridian Hotel this time, and it had a New Testament and a Book of Mormon. And so,
all right.
So the Book of Mormon is making its way all around the world, and people from Arabic countries or French, France, all around the world, they read the Book of Mormon, and they want to know about it. And so if they go to the church's website, then it becomes more of a missionary kind of a thing, which erects an obstacle. It'd be like
it's a barrier to entry in the sense that some people they would be reluctant to engage in some kind of official process.
Well, there's that, and there's also
this is a little bit more informal. So
well, take the Bible. If the Bible, if we were taught that you could only accept the Bible if you accepted the Catholic Church, for example, nobody would read the Bible other than Catholics.
Yeah.
And so I want the Book of Mormon, and I think Elder...
Well, it's also different buying like somebody's Bible off eBay that they know aren't going to send missionaries to your door than like, I don't know, going to like CatholicAnswers.com and next thing you know, you might have some apologist calling you.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. So, and so...
By the way, that's not to call out Catholic Answers. Is there a CatholicAnswers.com? Why did that come
I think
to my
there
mind?
is, yeah. I think
no, I know there's a podcast for that. Yeah, okay, that makes sense. That's why I referenced that.
So the idea is that we want to reduce barriers to the Book of Mormon.
Okay,
and I've had a lot of people that in my life that I've talked to about the Book of Mormon, and they get enthusiastic about it, and they tell the minister, and the minister says, "You can't read that; it's of the devil," right? And so then they won't read it, but they love what it says. And as an example, there was an LDS chapel I think it was in Brooklyn that we visited. And the churches sold it to a Christian denomination, like a Baptist church, when they didn't need it anymore.
Yeah.
But when the church had it, they had written inscriptions from the Book of Mormon around the ceiling on the wall. And when the Baptists came in, they didn't know where it came from, but they thought, this is awesome. It says we teach of Christ and so on. Those passages from the Book of Mormon, and they left it up. So so I think Christians in general would love the Book of Mormon if they weren't kind of poisoned by what their ministers tell them about it. There
are some that are very compatible. There's others that are very ecumenical. And it's sad that they're not all in the latter camp.
Yeah.
Some of them are in the first camp.
And it's cool. And we want to make it accessible to people without feeling like if they read this book, they have to join the church or something. That's not the point. The point was to convince people that Jesus is the Christ. And it's a second testimony or another witness of Jesus Christ, another testament of Jesus Christ. And that's how it should be presented to the world, in my view. By making it into a missionary book, it erects those barriers that cause people to not even want to read it.
Okay.
And so that's the approach of this. I mean, it's an alternative approach to other uses of the Book of Mormon, that missionaries have. But we think it'll make it much more accessible throughout the world. That's the idea of it.
Now, so it'll be a physical location in...
We hope to do it in Washington, D.C.
So there's already going to be a large volume of tourists, diplomats, students, families that are coming to Washington, D.C.
Right.
Well, are you buying the lot in front of the Bible Museum?
Well, that's what I
said.
said earlier. I've scouted that area. This was pre-COVID now when I was doing all this.
Okay.
And I found a couple of locations. I thought, now that could work. It'd take some remodeling and so on. And it wouldn't be nearly as extensive as the Museum of the Bible, which takes up almost an entire block. It's a huge building.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. But there's some smaller sites there, and it would be kind of in conjunction with it because, a lot of the work that I did, I wrote a book called Infinite Goodness that talked about the Jonathan Edwards' influence on Joseph Smith and the Book of Mormon.
Okay.
And that's opened a lot of doors to Christians because Jonathan Edwards was very influential in American Christianity.
Okay.
And most Christians know all about Jonathan Edwards.
Wait, isn't he the guy that wrote like Sinners in the Hands?
Yeah, that's what he's known for.
You're going to burn in hell.
Yeah.
Like, okay.
Yeah. And he's most known for that, and it's a total misnomer.
No, it's Sinners in the Hands of an Angry God, right?
Yeah, dangling the spider, dangling over the fire, and all that stuff.
Oh, jeez. Yeah. Wow, sounds like a great guy to hang out with.
Yeah, well,
I'm saying he's probably a riot around the dinner table. At Thanksgiving, man. He's the one that you want to invite to the table, right?
Yeah, but he also talked about eternal marriage and about the restoration of the gospel in the latter days. And
shut up, really?
Yeah, totally.
Okay, I take it all back.
So, yeah.
No.
Well, he's been given a bum rap by a lot of people because of that dynamic sermon that he gave that is in a lot of American history books. Here's Jonathan Edwards.
Of course, that could just be the woke scolds that always are trying to rewrite history and vilify Christianity anyway.
Make Christians look crazy.
To make them look crazy and irrational. Yeah. So I might just be adopting the language of my oppressors, and I shouldn't. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. So we want to make Jonathan Edwards part of the narrative of the restoration is another aspect of this whole thing. And it's opened a lot of doors for people to say, if Jonathan Edwards, if Joseph Smith was familiar with the writings of Jonathan Edwards and incorporated that language in the Book of Mormon, which I've shown that he did, then that makes the Book of Mormon part of Christian tradition.
Or maybe he didn't necessarily directly incorporate it into the language. It probably just existed in the zeitgeist of...
That's another way to look at
northeastern
it. I know some people say that,
right?
but there are long specific phrases that Jonathan
It's like,
Edwards
for example,
used.
Jokingly, I tell people sometimes, okay, I talk like a Ninja Turtle.
Yeah.
Well, no, it's not because I'm literally trying to incorporate the Ninja Turtles into my
fair enough.
WardRadio program.
Sure.
It's just that's kind of what the 90s were like, and I raised in the late 90s, early 2000s. Coming out of Southern California,
sure.
You talk like
it's part of the influence.
Yeah, exactly.
Although Jonathan Edwards wrote a whole sermon about how the natural man is an enemy to God, which is right.
Okay.
King Benjamin quote, and there's lots of other examples. I have it's a Kindle version now because it's too thick to print, but it's about 1,500 pages of the correlation between Jonathan Edwards and the Book of Mormon. The non-biblical language in the Book of Mormon is mostly from Jonathan Edwards. And so, but that's another topic we could talk about sometime.
Okay.
But the point is that is an introduction for Christians to start accepting the Book of Mormon.
And how well is it received? Like, what's the number one thing that you notice really gets the average person, the uninitiated, to come around? Have you had any maybe antagonists that have come around, or is it mostly
there's a few antagonists. I think it's Christian scholars more are recognizing this influence of Jonathan Edwards.
Okay.
And Richard Bushman mentioned it in his latest book about the gold plates.
Okay, yeah.
And so it's kind of becoming an accepted thing. It's a new way to look at the Book of Mormon, really, and Joseph Smith as a translator. But that really appeals to more of the scholarly type of evangelicals.
Okay.
The lay person just reads the Book of Mormon if they're not poisoned by what they've been told about it, and they read it and say, this is beautiful. This talks about Christ. Yeah. Another thing that I wish is that we had started the Book of Mormon or published the Book of Mormon in the order in which it was translated. It started with the Book of Mosiah.
Yeah. I
always tell investigators, friends of the church, and missionaries, have your people start with the Book of Mosiah, because it's so beautiful, and King Benjamin's sermon, people love that. Whereas you start with First Nephi, it's more of an obstacle again, because it's Nephi's chopping a head off, and it has all this stuff.
Let's get the difficult stuff out of the way early, right?
Yeah, if they get past that. I'll tell you a funny story. So I was in Korea once in an elevator, and we were there was a Korean guy and an American guy, and they said the American guy said he was from Salt Lake, and I said, really? So are we. And it turns out the Korean guy was a translator. He was retranslating the Book of Mormon into Korean. And I ended up on the bus with him to the airport. sitting next to him, and he had a translator's edition of the Book of Mormon. I don't know if you've ever seen that.
No, that's cool.
Yeah, the back third of it, about 1/3 of it, is explaining the terms in the Book of Mormon itself for a translator. And they're all numbered copies, so nobody ever gets to see them. But it's really interesting. Yeah, it's like this word means this in English and explains it. I wish everybody could have access to that. But we
got to find one of these translators copies, bro.
If you could find one, man, it's amazing.
Dude, I feel like it's a modern Gnostic text.
It is.
We're just about to get, like there's some just deep, dark secret.
Well, and I so wanted to keep it. Of course, he wouldn't let me have it.
I would have punched him in the face
and run off
with it. I don't care how un-Christ-like
I was
that
this
is.
close. I was that close to doing it.
Okay.
But at least I did have access, and I read through it. And I was talking with him about it. I said, how are you translating Isaiah? Because Isaiah is always a big obstacle.
Yeah.
And he said he was told that the original translation in Korean kind of made Isaiah easy to read. And the brethren said, no, it's hard to read in English. It should be hard to understand in Korean too. Seriously. And so he was having to do it. He was having to make it more like the King James Isaiah.
Wait, the church purposely made the Korean book of Isaiah hard to read?
Yeah, apparently. That's what he told me. So, yeah, isn't that awesome?
It's like, if we suffer in English, you will suffer too.
Right. Yeah, that's right.
That sounds so Christ-like. No, I
well, it's interesting. It's an interesting approach to it. But anyway, that's why I advocate when I tell the missionaries all the time: have your people start in Mosiah, not First Nephi, because even though it's out of chronology, it's so much more about Christ in Mosiah and King Benjamin's address and all that. So that's what I always advocate. And so I've thought about republishing a Book of Mormon, an 1840 edition that starts with Mosiah. The very first verse in Mosiah talks about no more contention, which is one of my themes, right? I have a whole website on that.
Is that why you're always dogging the Mesoamerican people? No,
no, I love those guys, but my whole point is there's no point in having contention. Let's just agree to the facts and then slowly move through the thing. Let people make informed decisions.
I should say Mesoamerican Book of Mormon archaeology people, not the actual Mesoamericans, right? There's some poor Guatemalan that's gonna tune and be like, "Yo, dude, what you got? What you got beef?" You know,
the Meso bro, right?
Yeah, that's funny. So, wow, it's cool. That is intriguing.
Yeah.
And it's pretty well received, it seems like, so far.
Yeah. I mean, when I talk to LDS people, they're saying, what do you mean a non-denominational Book of Mormon? The Book of Mormon brings people to the church. And I say, no, it brings people to Christ. That's the purpose of the Book of Mormon. And then they can come into the church. But people don't have to accept the church, and they can still love the Book of Mormon.
So your plan is that when they go in, they're going to learn about the Book of Mormon, walk out with a freebie copy, I assume.
Yeah, sure.
And just be able to be given an arm's length. Here's what it is. If you want to know more, sure, here's a business card or whatever. Not a business card, but here's some contact information.
But the focus is on Jesus Christ.
No, that's great. Yeah. I'm 100% on board with this. I think it's a phenomenal idea. And I'm actually kind of surprised. How did we not think this up earlier?
Well, it's always been a missionary tool. And when it's a missionary tool, it creates an obstacle for people to accept it.
Okay, that's true, because maybe people don't want to engage in a missionary process, but there's plenty of people that might just be plain old curious.
Absolutely. And to find inspiration. If you have time, I'll tell you another anecdote. You ready?
Okay, can you keep it to 90 seconds?
Yeah,
or less?
90 seconds. So I was in Egypt. I did some work in Egypt, and I had a Muslim guy that I was working with.
Rock on.
And I wanted to see where the Coptic Christians hung out, right in the middle of Cairo. And he had never been there in his life, because that was kind of a place that Muslims don't go. But he agreed to drive me in there, and they have a big wall there. It's like a quarry, and they have inscriptions from the Bible up on this wall. And he was reading those, and he says, "Those are beautiful. Where did that come from?" And I said, "Well, it came from the Bible." And he says, "You're kidding." He never read the Bible,
Oh, interesting.
But just seeing the words of the Bible made a huge impression on him.
Oh, so when the tribalism is broken down a little bit,
yeah,
you can kind of see.
And it's the same with the Book of Mormon. When Christians read what the Book of Mormon actually says about Christ, they love it. They feel the Spirit. And it's only this use of a missionary tool. You have to change your religion to accept this book that causes the rift or the divide.
Yeah.
And so
or at least that's not what they actually say, but it's the perception that might be the process.
Well, but their ministers kind of tell them that.
Yeah, exactly. It's a false It's a straw man put out by pop culture, by media, and by anti-Mormon leaders of other sects.
So the words of the Book of Mormon bring people to Christ, and that's why I think if we can, the more barriers we can reduce to make the Book of Mormon accessible to people, the better.
Okay,
that's what we're all about. So.
Well, dude, this is great. I want to see it when it's built. I think your cool idea of having the little rings in the middle, that's good. I love it. Yeah. I don't like the whole tabs on the side of the building thing. I'll be honest with you. Just like one of them is more than enough.
Well, it looks like
and
tabs,
you need to commit to the bit, bro, and paint the whole thing gold. If I might be a little bit Donald Trumpy, you know what I'm saying?
Well,
but you if these were translated off gold plates, bro, I want this museum painted gold.
Well, you can bring the paint.
Okay, all right, we'll do. It'll be our service project to the 501c3 Book of Mormon Museum. So anyway, this has been great. You guys, if you want to see more, please make sure that you check out the website for the Museum of the Book of Mormon. You can see it right here at mobom.org. His name is Jonathan Neville, prolific author, and now the future curator of the Museum of the Book of Mormon. As always, let us know what you guys think in the comments of this video. If you're listening on the radio, there will also be a comment section there as well on our website. And for this and more, please make sure you check us out at WardRadio.
I just feel so good. Oh, I just feel so good.